Hello, Anil. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi
Yeah,
Anil, good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
yeah. Today's topic is
User
User.
variables.
okay. Can you please start sharing the screen and walk me through the PPT?
Okay. Okay. Is my screen visible to you?
Yes.
Yes. Carry.
Okay. Today's topic is about user variables. User variables are the variables that act as a filter, enabling the user for selecting the certain members in the artifacts. Uh, these user variables can be used in the following artifacts like data forms, runtime prompts, business rules, and smart view. Let's see how can we create the substitution and like that user variables only. So what is the use of user variable? User variable provides a choice for the user to select the certain members in the artifacts. So what is the difference between the user variable and substitution variable? These substitution variables are created at the global level as the admin, and it replaces the value that are reflected throughout the application. Whereas the user variables provides a choice for the user, he able to click and select his own preference so that it can mention these differences between the user variables and substitution variables. In which case do we use our user variable over the substitution variable? Take it as an example. So many users are using this application. Suppose a user present in the US, he wants to check his location details only for that entity. For example, he takes only the New York as an entity. In that scenario, we can generate this user variable like entity filtering purpose. We can generate him that scenario. We can use that user variable under that entity dimension. In that scenario, we can use that user variable. Let's see in that following presentation. Can you show how can we create a user variable from the using these user cases? The use case one. Assume the user one is the owner of two entities. Assign the two entities as the values in the entity dimension. Let's navigate in the EPM cloud and demonstrate the navigation part. First of all, we have to navigate to the EPM cloud, provide the credentials to it. And the welcome page is a home page. When we navigate to under the tools card, under that we have to navigate to the variable section. Here there will be two sections like user variable and substitution variable. In user variables, there are predefined ones and these can be generated by the admin. We can create new one by clicking the plus icon. As we can see, we can define these what are the dimensions we want to create the user variable. As per the use case scenario, he has mentioned two entities that is a user one has to be taken care of it. So let us take that entity dimension. I'm giving the user variable name as user entity. I'm specifying the dimensions like members, like when we select the member selector, we will select the two entities. For our instance, I am selecting here under the EN01, I am selecting New York and the Boston. I am specifying the two members as per the presentation. So I am selecting the two members here and click on OK. The two has been taken successfully and click on save for saving the user variable. So the records has been saved successfully. As you can see that under entity, the user variable has been created and the members has been selected as New York and Boston. Now let's see how can we use the user variables in the data forms. In that first point is about can you use the user any in the forms as the shown in the user as per the case 1 from the slide 3. So to show the user variables in the data forms, we have to navigate to forms. Under create and manage, click on forms. I'm taking the predefined one. Suppose I'm taking as a demo form 1. Under layout, in the rows, I am selected the account dimension and the members are total assets, descendants, and column in the column sections, I have taken the year and the period is March and the entity is en01_01. And similarly, in the columns also, I have selected the same for the years FY22 and the period is April. I have taken entity 02. Similar way, in the POV section, I have selected the scenario as actual, and the following the members are taken from the default ones, and the form look like this. This is the hard coded manual one. See, in the manual coded ones, I have taken the FY22 and March and April, and these are the entities I have given manually. For doing this user variables in data forms, we have to take the another column. I am taking that another column. I have taken the user variables here. Under the variables, select the user. I have created one user variable under the year, user year. I am taking that. Remove this and add this user variable. Click on OK. As you can see, it is defined as ampersand followed by the user variable name. These user variables and substitution variables are defined as the ampersand followed by the name. Similarly, we do the period also. Remove this manually and click on the variables. Add the user period here. For entity also, we are doing the same thing. Under the variables, click on remove that first of all and enter the user entity here and click on OK. Save the form and click on the preview. And it will throw an error like this. You can open the form, must select the user defined, because as a user I have not selected the preference because it gives the error. For solving this, we have to go through the user preferences. I have before said the user have to select one thing before he is entering into the any artifact. If, as we created the user entity, I have not selected that entity name. For that, I have selected the member function here under total geography, under segments. Here we can distinguish these two are the user defined variables I have selected in the user entity. For now, I am selecting the New York one and click on OK. Click on save. User, this is like user will have this choice of selection in the user variables. Now let's get back into our form and check the details. Click on preview. Now the form has opened. Here I have selected these three members, like I have selected as FY22 user year, user period as April. I have selected as entity as the New York one. Just right now, like this, we can use our user variables in the data forms, and I can show you by changing this here. When we say change this dimension here, it will also reflect the user variable there. For suppose I'm taking the total geography under the segments. Now I'm selecting the Boston. Click on OK and click on save. The user preference has been saved. Let's see the same form. What changes has been occurred. Beyond demos. Beyond home. And preview the form. See, the entity name has been changed from New York to Boston. Like this, when we change there the user variable, we can it will reflect here, and this is the flexibility that substitution variable doesn't provide. Because the user will have the preference. This is the main difference. Let's get into the presentation. Under the user requirement, Can you show how can you enable the user dynamic variable? Yes, you can show that. Navigate into the form. I'm taking the same form here under the demos. I've taken the user variable demo form. For enabling this dynamic user variable, we have to go to the other options. Under that, here there will be an option called dynamic user variables. First of all, it is unchecked like this. We have to enable it here, like pressing this check icon. It will enable the dynamic user variables under the forms. For now, we have created these user variables. So depending on the scenario, we will add it into the form. For example, I am taking the year and entity under this dynamic user variable and adding into the form. Click on save. It has been saved successfully, and clicking on finish. We'll see in the data forms how it will change the layouts and the pivot selections. And navigate to the data, click on the demos here and navigate to the user form. See, these are all the POVs that are selected here before creating the form. These are the dynamic user variables that we can use as a secondary selection members for the year and user entity for our example purpose. I have enabled for enabling these user entities here. Click on any of the dimension. These are the filtered forms have been created under the user variables. Like this, we can enable these dynamic user variables. Coming to the second point, take a parent entity as an example. Show how the children of the parent has been filtered in the data form. For this, we have to navigate again to the forms. Because we have created a filters, what the user has been restricted from FY22, FY25 like that, we will create it and we can select the user preferences like that. We can check these details. How can we restrict these in the form? Click on the library under the demos. I'm taking the same form. Now I'm mentioning here. I'm taking the same whole user entities. I'm taking the descendants for that. Remove that first of all. Under variables, we can select that functionality selector. Click on the children because he's asked for show the children of the parent entity. I'm taking the children's, which is the user entity under that children including, and click on OK. Now the children has been added. For now instance, we can check that. Click on preview. See, these are restricted because the user has selected only Boston. Like this, we can restrict these under that parent entity example. Coming to that fourth point, when the data form has been saved, the business rule should run on the context of the entity selection made. For this, we have to navigate to the business rule. What are the rules we have to add it, and then we have to select the members on this form. Before it will be like unchecked, we have to check this. Use these members on this form. Click on save and finish the form. Now, let's see how can we use these user variables in the runtime prompts. Basically, runtime prompts are the prompts that occurred during the running of the business rule. We can see how can we create the user variables under RTP. Let's navigate to the EPM cloud. Under the create and manage, there are rules section. Click on rules. It will open the separate calculation manager window. Click on actions. Click on variable designer. In the left panel, you will see the EPM cloud. Expand that. You will see two options. One is global and another one is application level. If you create a runtime prompt, there is two options. We can create at global level. Another one is the application level. When you create an user variable on the global level, it reflects on the throughout the global all the dimensions. When you select the application level, it is fixed to that dimensions and that cube levels only. For now, I'm creating that in the global level. These are the earlier ones. I'm now creating the newer one. Click on the actions. You can select the new one, or you can select the key shortcut is Control Shift V. Click on new. You will open the properties panel. Give the name, like I'm giving RTP underscore user entity. The data type is I'm taking a member because I'm dealing with the dimension part. I'm taking that entity dimension. When we click this check mark, it will activate the runtime prompt. And second point is if yes, you can limit the user variable in the RTP able to restrict one user from accessing the entities other than the issues. For limiting this RTP, we have the limit menu here, and we can mention that specified user entity here. Let's I'm taking the user entity under because I'm creating the user RTP here, and the default one also is a user entity here. Please give a text here RTP. For that we will select a menu. When it's completed, we will click on save. RTP user. Okay. Like this, we will create here. User entity has been created. Yes. For now, we applying this RTP into the system view. Click on system view, expand the EPM cloud, expand the rev app, expand the consoles, expand the rules. These FCCS underscore 10 to FCCS underscore 70, these are created by the application by default. We will create the custom rule by pressing the actions under and click on the object under the rule, and we will create that. Open that, click on open. Now we can see how can we use these user variables in business rule. Or can you show me how to use this user variable in the business rule? Can you show the what advantage does it provide to our substitution rule? Can you explain the one of the following approach is recommended, not recommended in the business rule? Can you explain hard coding user variable of entity, user variable of this using RTP? Okay. Let's navigate to the calculation manager here. When we select the custom rule, and this is the coding part, we will do it here. There are 3 ways we can do it. I can show you it in clearly here, notepad explaining that. First of all, it opens with an fix command in caps and it closes with an nfix, and in the parenthesis for the hard coding ones, we will mention the years or the period like this here directly. The period and the years, what are we mentioning for the runtime prompts parameters will be defined here like this. This is the hard coded one. For the second instance, using the user variability of the entity. For the user variables, we will mention ampersand followed by the user variable name. Similarly, we can define the substitution variables also like that. like ampersand followed by the substitution variable name. And for creating the including the runtime prompts in the business rule, we will specify the runtime prompts under the braces here. The runtime prompt name, for example, RTP underscore user entity, like this. This is one is the hard coded one, manual one. This is using the user variables here. This is one is the using substitution variable, and this one is the using the RTPs. Like that, we will use this like in the substitution and user variables in the business rule. I can recommend that using the RTP is the best way we can develop this, because it will provide a runtime prompt for the user selecting the options. For now, I'm creating this syntax. Using this syntax, I'm creating the RTPs under the business rule. Click on save. As we can see, these three RTPs has been included in our custom rule here. One is RTP user period, another one is user period, and the third one is user entities. So click on validate for checking the syntax errors. The rule has been validated without no errors. Click on deploy for deploying it into the application. The deployment was successful. It was deployed into our application. Let's navigate into our application and check these routes. Click on routes in the dashboards and select the custom rules and click on launch. As we can see, these three has been included in our RTPs, user variables. This is the user period and user year, and this is the user entity that are we are selected that user entities in our runtime prompt. Like this, we can use these user variables in our business rules. Let's get into the last part, that is the smart view. We can see the user variables in smart view by navigating into our smart view. I'm taking the same form here. Smart view, click on panel, shared connections, view the credentials. Click on the EPM cloud, expand the application, library, demos. I'm selecting the user variable demo form. Click on add analysis. This is the form we have made changes in the data form segment. For enabling these user variables, click on the cell, enter the ampersand followed by the user variable name, user year, click on enter, provide the user variable month, and click on the user variable and type the entity. Click on. I will show these are the names that are provided in the sub variable names under the user variable names, like this user period, user entity, and user year. After giving these details, click on refresh. Like this, we will include these user variables here in the smart view. In this topic, we can conclude that these usage of these user variables in the following artifacts. We have checked the data forms. We have seen in the runtime prompts and business rules in smart view also. This concludes this topic, user variables. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you, Anil. You can leave now. You can leave the meeting now,
Thank you,
Anil.
Anil. You can leave now.
Thank you so much.